We heard from Benny Johnson yesterday, who is an influencer on the right, who has been interviewing people on Epstein and knows some administration officials. And he said that powerful people inside the administration are now pushing for a special counsel and a full press briefing. My own take on that is there is no way we're having a special counsel. Like, a special counsel is appointed by the attorney general and is needed when there's a conflict of interest by said attorney general. What is Pam Bondi's conflict of interest? She can investigate Epstein and what happened. Just because she screwed up in her messaging on Epstein over the past few months doesn't mean she's got a conflict of interest. I mean, to the contrary, I think now she would want to be as transparent as ever since her own reputation has been dinged up. So I just don't think they'd want that. And even if they did appoint a special counsel, it would be kind of pointless because that person would obviously be under the control of Bondi and Trump. So it's just, I mean, that to me is a red herring. It's like a head fake. Now, if they are actually thinking about having a presser or Pam Bondi sitting down for an extensive interview or, it's no holds barred and she'll answer any question, she and or anybody from the FBI or anybody else from DOJ are welcome to come on this show and do that. And as you guys know, I'll be totally fair. I don't dislike Pam Bondi. I don't have it out for Pam Bondi. We've always had a good relationship. I just think she's botched this. I think if there's sort of a fall guy on who's mishandled the Epstein messaging for the Trump administration, it's very clearly Pam Bondi. So in any event, one of those two things could happen according to Benny Johnson. I don't think they're not going to have any additional disclosures. I think they realize they just have to. I mean, go back to my appearance at the Charlie Kirk Turning Point Student Action Summit on Friday. We sat together and I asked the audience about their level of interest in the Epstein case, and here's what happened. Watch this. Let me just ask you, make some noise if you care about the Jeffrey Epstein scandal.
Raise your hand if it matters a lot to you. Raise your hand. So every hand of 7,000 people.
Everybody cares. It's interesting because there are some right-wing pundits online now who are saying no one cares about Jeffrey Epstein. And that's just not true. That's not true. And in fact, Rasmussen recently did a poll that showed only 21% of the American public believes that Epstein killed himself. So the vast majority of Americans actually think that there is a cover-up of some sort, that he was murdered, and would like more disclosure. This isn't exactly what Trump ran on. It's not what wasn't a big platform of Trump's, but all of Trump's surrogates pushed this. And anybody who says otherwise is misleading you. I mean, from his family members to his top surrogates and to the vice president, demanding more transparency on Epstein. So that's why we are where we are. It's not the number one most important thing of the Trump administration. I think it's important to keep in mind Trump has been out there racking up wins, I mean, left and right. We talked about last week, he was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize with good reason. June, for the first time, we saw an economic surplus here in the United States when it comes to our economy. And a surplus. For the first time, we weren't spending into the deficit. We actually were in the black instead of in the red in the United States of America. And you had even CNBC and the New York Times admitting it was because of Trump's tariffs, the dreaded evil tariffs that everybody's supposed to hate that are so awful. Well, guess what? They're actually bringing in real money. And that's before they've even really kicked in earnest. We're still in the middle of his big pause on the tariffs. So that's another huge thing. Trump's just recently said he's going to open back up the spigot with Ukrainian arms. He's going to go, that was in Morning Update, he's going to go through NATO and have, provide the arms to them and have them give them to Ukraine. So that's a bit of a victory for the more neocon wing of the Republican Party. But look, they've had a couple of victories lately, the Iranian nuclear strikes and now this. So, Trump is sort of evaluating his landscape on the foreign policy front and making real-time assessments. And while he really did try to woo Putin with honey instead of vinegar, it clearly didn't work. And I think he's realizing that Putin really can't be wooed, can't be manipulated by praise or flattery, and that he's kind of, an asshole. Of course, he's doing terrible, awful things in Ukraine, but I mean, he's not a man of his word. That's what Trump is realizing. And he's coming to his own independent judgment on whether he can trust him. And honestly, the neocons should just be happy with that. Like, no one wanted to give Trump time to come to his own conclusions. They just want to shove their purported foreign policy knowledge down his throat. It's like, you know what? Trump's the president. He's got tons of advisors, more informed than you, telling him what the competing interests are. And at some point, the guy who's actually going to have to supply weapons that are going to kill people has to have his own independent experience that leads him to his own independent judgment. And that's what he's doing. So anyway, he's doing well on it, and he's winning court battle after court battle. The Supreme Court continues to step in to slap down these federal district court judges that are trying still to enjoin the Trump agenda. So far, he's doing very well with the lawfare against him. It takes a little time to undo the rogue federal district court judges, but he's doing it. So look, he's focused on a lot of important things, and I agree and accept that Epstein is nowhere near even the top 20. The problem for him is this has been an ongoing issue for millions in the country, and especially among the Republican base. And it's been a fanned by his top emissaries, including the two guys he has running the FBI. I mean, totally those guys. And I don't think that they would try to deny that. I think Bongino and Patel would be really clear about that. Okay, so you now have some MAGA influencers clearly on direction of the White House saying, okay, I'm done. You had Laura Ingraham go on her show on Fox News on last night being like, oh, well, after there was the pile-on at Charlie Kirk's Turning Point event, where all this Republican infighting, and then kind of suggested she's moving on from Epstein. Okay, she was part of it. I like Laura, but she 100% stood up there and fanned this flame. I 100% talked about Pam Bondi and Epstein. I was on the receiving end of a Q&A. Charlie Kirk was asking those questions. This was not Megyn Kelly's choice for the questions of the evening. The interviewer sets the tone and chooses the subject, with which I was 100% fine and remain fine. But let's not pretend that, some of the president's most loyal advocates aren't very, very interested in Epstein. They are, all right? However, some in the media let their loyalty to the president trump their journalistic obligation. Now, Charlie, I don't think considers himself a journalist, and so he has no such obligation, and he's never made any secret of that. So kudos to him. Here's what he's saying, and I'll talk about it on the back end. Sot one.
Plenty was said this last weekend at our event about Epstein. Honestly, I'm done talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends in the administration. I'm going to trust my friends in the government to do what needs to be done, solve it, balls in their hands. But let me just say this again. Everyone knows my opinion about the Epstein thing, the messaging fumble. I would love to see the DOJ move to unseal the grand jury testimony. I think that would be a big win. I would love to see that. And I'm going to trust my friends, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, my friend Pam Bondi, all these guys. I'm going to, Todd Blanche, I'm going to trust them to solve it. Balls in their court. I think that there was plenty of, let's say, speeches that were directed towards this topic this last weekend.
And there were, up and down the roster. It was the dominant topic of conversation amongst virtually all the speakers that I heard. So Charlie says he's going to trust his friends inside the administration. You heard Ben Shapiro say that on this show yesterday. I will state for the record, I have lots of friends inside the administration. I have nothing but respect and admiration for this president, but I'm in a different business. I am in the journalism business, and my position is you can trust, but you must verify. And I refuse to be the CNN of Trump 2.0, where they just trusted the administration on Biden's mental acuity and willingly, by doing so, ignored the biggest crisis and controversy and scandal in modern presidential history. That's not what's happening under Trump. But I'm just saying, journalists, people like me who do consider themselves as journalists, you have an obligation not to just trust. You kick the tires. That's your job. You approach all stories and everything fed to you by an administration official, like them, love them, respect them, trust them or not, with a hefty dose of skepticism. And you drill down and drill down and drill down until you think you've actually captured the story. That's what we're going to do. I'm not obsessed with Epstein. Everyone who listens to this show knows if you wanted to hear the in-depth Epstein discussions over the past 5-6 years, this is not the place you came. But we are going to try to get to the bottom of what's knowable. now that they're telling us there's no there there. I mean, for me, that's just a red cape in front of a bull. Like, just, I understand some people like, don't do it. You don't want to hurt Trump. I don't think this will hurt Trump. I think non-disclosure and non-transparency is hurting Trump, but I'm also not in the business of protecting Donald Trump. Again, like, that's what the New York Times does for a Democrat. That's not me. That's not any honest journalist. I am not going on some media tour in 4 years with Alex Thompson trying to have to explain how I'm shocked that there wasn't full disclosure under Trump on Epstein. I guess I was just too naive. I believed them. This is humiliating. This scandal is nowhere near what the Biden mental acuity scandal was, but I'm just saying it's a time for choosing for people who consider themselves honest journalists. And you don't back off a story just because a politician asks you to, okay? That's just a statement of core principles. At least you're on the MK show. That's that. However, having said all that, I don't have TDS. I'm not looking to hurt him, sink him. And I actually don't believe Trump has anything to hide. I believe Trump's in the Epstein files insofar as he was friends with Epstein for 15 years. He knew Epstein. And there are people who hate Trump who probably threw some scurrilous allegations in there. But nobody believes Trump had an affinity for the underage girl. That's just such bullshit. Maybe he was at some Epstein party. Trump says he never went to Epstein Island, and I believe that too. That would be something to extraordinarily lie about. It'd be very easily disproven. So maybe Trump feels uncomfortable with releasing everything because he's been falsely accused by a lot of people, and he doesn't want to just throw a bunch of guys whose names are in these files under the bus in the way happened to him. That would make perfect sense to me. Maybe he sees something about his own name in there that he thinks is utter bullshit, and he's not looking to create more attention around that issue. And so it's just easier to be like, we're done. The guy's dead, move on. I get that, but Trump doesn't have his finger on the pulse of how important this is, I think, to his base and to many. And maybe it's a question, as Pam Bondi, has said, well, sort of, in her memo, she's intimated that, look, there's really not anything that can be disclosed, that we've got sealed grand jury testimony, that we've got heavily redacted FBI files that protect the names of victims or alleged victims. All that's possible. Since President Trump was sworn in, his administration has made enormous progress at a breakneck pace. But don't forget, while they're moving mountains for the good of the nation, you've got your own personal savings to worry about. And one of the best ways to look after your savings is through diversification, particularly with gold, like from Birch Gold Group. In the past 12 months, the value of gold has increased by 40%. OMG. Central banks continue to bolster demand for gold by buying in record quantities. Global instability and tension is high, and Birch Gold makes owning physical gold extremely easy. Easily convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, or buy some to store in your home safe. Just text MK to the number 989898, and Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, just useful information. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, take control of your savings today. Text MK to the number 989898. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.